Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the NicTalksBall podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening. People that know me know that this has been coming along for a long time, so it's a pleasure to finally get things started today. I thought for the first ever episode we'd talk about Arsenal, so I've got this little number on this morning, and if you can't see, if you listen on Spotify, I am wearing this season's new home shirt, complete with the Champions League badge. Ahead of tonight's game against Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League, it's a very cold Wednesday, but Arsenal should progress with the 3 points in that one. But before we get started, I just wanted to say this week we'll be talking about Arsenal, whereabouts we're at in the project under Mikel Arteta, and where we go from here. It's been a tough season for Arsenal, definitely tougher than the last two seasons, I'd say, but we'll see how we are going to progress along. And in terms of just some general housekeeping stuff, I'm planning to record and upload these episodes every Wednesday. So that should give us, I thought that's a nice time to upload a podcast because it gives us some time to recover from the previous weekend of news. And also, if anything comes up on a Monday, gives us an opportunity to talk about them. But I did think for the first ever episode, covering Arsenal would probably be a good place to start, because for those who don't know me, I am a massive Arsenal fan. And I thought, to save people asking me my opinions on things about Arsenal, it would be best to just cover it in the first episode. So it'll be a really good base point to start from. That was my general thinking behind that. But yeah, let's get started then. So we are, in terms of Arsenal, it's a bit of a low point in the season for us. We've come off the back of some very tough results. We had a strange period where we seemed to be playing a lot at home. Obviously got dumped out of the FA Cup at the first hurdle by Manchester United on penalties. We lost to Newcastle United in the first leg of our Carabao Cup semi-final. A really tough result to take. And these results, see, in front of goal hasn't been good enough. That's been the main takeaway by the media. I think the fan base has, of course, overreacted in true Arsenal fan fashion, in the sense that, and I'm guilty of that myself when watching the games, but obviously after the games I'm happy to, or I like to think that I can take a bit more of a measured approach to that. But there are players in the attack having a tough time at the moment. We're really struggling with injuries. Obviously, Saka is out for a while still after his hamstring injury. Gabriel Jesus, we've lost now for the rest of the season, it seems to be. Ben White is still out, although he has been pictured in training, so hopefully it'll be lovely to see him tonight, but if not, hopefully on the weekend. So it's a struggle at the moment. We're still second in the table, although Liverpool do obviously have a game in hand. They've got that double game week coming up. So it's a tough time. Arteta is saying that, excuse me, Arteta is saying that, we are going to dip into the market, but we'll see. We'll come on to that. But first of all, I want to sort of talk a bit about recruitment and Arsenal's approach. And at the moment, we can talk about last summer, but this was our previous sporting director, Edu Gaspar. This was his last summer at Arsenal before his somewhat mysterious disappearance a few months ago, I think is fair to say. So the incomings, there were 4 permanent incomings in the summer. Plus we made David Raya permanent. He was on loan from Brentford. And we obviously made that, I can't remember if it's an optional obligation. Pretty sure it was an option, I feel like. Anyway, we paid the money. Basically, the money came out the pot this summer to make David Raya permanent, which is something that for Arsenal you probably have to take into account, because our finances aren't as comfy as Manchester City, for example. Like, that's kind of a big deal for us. It was like 30 million euros according to Transfermarkt, so it's a substantial amount of money for us, really. But if we look at the incomings, we had Riccardo Calafiori. He came in from Bologna, of course, 45 million euros. So the biggest signing of the summer. The second was Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad. He was 32 million euros. These figures are according to Transfermarkt, of course. And we had 2 loan signings come in. Raheem Sterling has come in on loan from Chelsea, and Neto has come in on loan from Bournemouth. Now, the fan base at the time thought that this was a really excellent window. That was the impression that I got. Now, I actually wasn't too keen on this window. I think we dropped the ball in some places. Calafiori, to start off with Calafiori, I really like Calafiori. I was lucky enough to catch some of his games last year for Bologna. I thought he was really exciting, really promising young player. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, he is someone who has had a really tough time with injuries. I think he's done his ACL twice. That was when he was at Roma. He thought he was never going to play again. And he was very talented at Roma. I can remember, watching him in the Europa League. And he was, clearly talented player. We fought off interest from, I believe, Real Madrid, I know, for one, was mentioned after the fact. We knew that. The Athletic, I think, did an article saying that Real Madrid were really keen on him and they missed out. They would probably love to have him now, but that's another story. Calafiori, I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be one of those players kind of like Timber, where he comes good in the second season and we won't really see the best of him until next year, because I think he's struggling. He has struggled with some injuries, which I think can happen. Luckily, they're not, to the level of like an ACL. It doesn't look like anything that's going to be recurring. I think he's just kind of struggling to acclimate to the league. But he's a good player. I'm happy we have him. But with the way Miles Lewis-Skelly is playing, I think, it's okay if Calafiori takes his time, if Lewis-Skelly is going to be playing like this. That left back is an interesting place in the Arsenal squad right now. You look at the guys that can play there. Calafiori is obviously you'd assume, is the one that Arteta wants to be playing week in, week out, or in the most important matches, due to the price point and the belief he has in him. Like, this was a guy that Arteta really wanted. Calafiori, I think, wanted to join, but Arteta was the guy that kind of sold the project to him. So he's like Arteta's guy, which I'm assuming most of the guys that he brings in are, but you never know with him. So obviously we've got Calafiori. Timber can play left back. It's where he's played before. Miles Lewis-Skelly, kind of at this sort of auxiliary fullback, false back, whatever you'd like to call it, inverted type thing that he's doing, which is somehow working. I don't know how. He's incredible. Who else do we have? Kivior can play there, and Zinchenko can play there. Tomiyasu can do a job there. So you've got these whole host of guys that Arteta kind of seems to have fallen out of love with. For example, Kiwior, Tomiyasu is perennially injured, of course. Kiwior just doesn't seem to be getting the fair shake at the moment, which is, again, I really like the player, but it's interesting that Arteta seemingly has strayed away from him in recent times. But yeah, Calafiori, I think, is a hit, or is going to be a hit. This is the one that I have the least issue with, because I like the player. I really liked it when we were interested. I really like this player. Marino is the one I have a bit of difficulty with. Again, he's one where I kind of like the player. He's a good player, but it's the fit for me. I don't really see this. He's obviously a physical monster. He likes to win duels, which Arteta has obviously been very vocal about being a fan of. But for me, it's his tight spaces play. Like, this is not a guy that, like, statistically fine. His numbers look good. I checked them just before I came on here because I want to make sure that I wasn't putting him down too harshly. I don't think he's had... what surprises me is he's a goal threat. Like, this is a guy who's not afraid to have a shot. He's pretty good in the air offensively, which I like. I imagine Arteta likes as well. I think he's come up with some quite big goals for us. Would have against Villa as well, if not for the Havertz handball, which was a handball. Sorry for our fan base to stomach that. But for the price and his age, he's 28, or he was 28 when we signed him. I don't know if he's had his birthday yet. I hope not. But he's 28. Not that that's a bad thing for him to have his birthday, by the way, but for him to be 28, 32 million euros, it's not a huge fee, but he's going to be getting worse every season. Just the nature of the beast. He is, due to his age, he is probably post-peak, and he is going to be getting worse. And for someone who might not even have his next season, we're going to talk about a potential transfer that's seemingly happening, and he isn't going to be in our best 11 of players, you'd imagine. So that's a strange transfer. I wasn't a fan of it this season. I don't think, if you were to ask me to make a lineup for a game against Manchester City, Mikel Merino would not be in it, if that makes sense. So I don't think he's in our best 11. But we're on that later. And then we have Raheem Sterling, obviously came on loan from Chelsea. This was a sort of low risk, high reward deal that Edu loved to do. I was impartial to it in the summer. I thought, okay, like if it's a good deal, and it was, like we didn't pay any loan fee and we're paying like under half of his weekly wages or something like that, it's which is fine. But he just hasn't made the impact. He's struggling against the top level opposition. Obviously in the cups he's been pretty good, but some of the chances he's missed, obviously not ideal. And with Saka being out, you'd think he'd be, well, surely like he'd be the guy that Arteta would want to replace him in the lineup, but it hasn't been like that. We've seen, Havertz play there, Martinelli play there, Wanyeri, when he was fit, play there. So interesting. And then Neto on loan from Bournemouth. This one for me is a disaster signing. I don't know why people in the summer were like, "Oh, this is so smart of us to do. Like, this is bad." Like, he was cup tied for the competition where you want to play him the most, which has led to us having to play like Jack Porter, a guy from the academy. I mean, fair play to him, but not ideal. Or David Raya, again, not ideal. You want to be resting him, ideally. So Neto hasn't played a game yet. Just been on the bench. We didn't even trust him to play against Man United in the FA Cup, so he might actually get a look in tonight against Zagreb. Wouldn't surprise me if he did start his first game tonight, so that would be really interesting to see. Hopefully he can have a good game if he does. If not, I'm actually not sure of what the signing is. Like, he's 35, so it's not like he's developing. It was just like a guy that they could get, I guess. I actually do like the player. I really liked Neto when he was at Valencia. I did actually really like him. But again, this one was a last-minute panic because they couldn't get the guy they wanted, which is Joan Garcia from Espanyol. But the funny thing is, we could probably get him this month if we went in hard for him. We could probably get him because Espanyol, to my understanding, from what I've read in Spanish press, are like happy to let him go now. So I don't know what changed between now and the summer. But that was our window. Now, as I hinted at earlier, Edu Gaspar is gone. Our sporting director, Edu Gaspar, who's Brazilian, he's a former player of ours, is gone. Now, this is interesting. The interesting bit was the way they announced it. It was very sort of mysterious circumstances. Sounded mutual, not sure. There's been no replacement. So it's been a few months. We're heading into January and we've already signed, or seemingly agreed to sign a player for the summer. But still no replacement, which is really, really strange. I assumed that there would be a guy already, and we've been linked to some replacements. Obviously, we've heard there's been rumours Per Mertesacker was going to be the guy to step up into the role from his head of academy role at Arsenal. That hasn't happened. There was rumours about Thomas Rojicki coming in, another former player. That hasn't happened. There was rumours about Tim Steidten, who's currently at West Ham, and the other one was the guy from Leverkusen. I believe his name's Simon Rolfe. Simon Rolfe would actually be, if that's his name, I can always forget his name because I confuse him with Rolfo, who's like the left back for the Barcelona ladies team. I always confuse their names. I don't know why I do that. But Simon Rolfe would be my pick because I think he has the best CV for the job and for what Arsenal are trying to do, as in win titles on a budget and be smart with data signings. That's what Arsenal are trying to do. He would be my pick, but again, I'm open to anything, really. Anything that the club kind of backs. So, Edu going out the door, I mean, to me, my brain tells me that he was kind of lent on. Even though Edu's sort of interviews sound like, oh, I really want to go and try new challenges. This is, I'm happy with my time at Arsenal. But to me, this seems like a really weird time. Seemed like a weird time in the project to leave. And let's talk about the project a little bit, because it's you have to say this is the season where Arsenal have stagnated. I'd say the first sort of good season was the 2022-23 campaign, where everyone was, Jesus and Zinchenko came in and they just changed the way that Arsenal played. That was really obvious. And then the season after that came close again. That was the season where the defence was robust and really improved. And it felt like we were progressing. This season has been a stagnation, and I think it's hard to look past that transfer window as the reason why. I think a left back was totally fair. I think a left back was needed. Kiwior had actually a pretty good season, but you could tell he wasn't the guy. He's not advanced enough at the level to play left back long term for a club like Arsenal. And of course, it doesn't help that Timber was injured, but Timber, I think, is better at right back anyway. Marino, again, like this, fair enough, we signed this guy, but he wasn't. The things that Marino was good at was not what we were missing in that midfield, which I think is quite obvious. Again, and at a striker, didn't happen. You know, we heard rumours, but it just didn't come about for whatever reason. We'll speak about that later. And obviously a backup goalkeeper was needed. Neto, in my opinion, is a disaster signing, unless Ray gets injured and he suddenly becomes a god for us. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Yeah, the jury's out, I guess, until he actually plays a game, which was pretty bizarre. But looking past that, looking to the future of Arsenal, there is a little bit of business that does need to be done. I hinted at it earlier. Arteta said, you know, we're going to be out in the market. I think there's a few positions, and annoyingly, they are positions that we still needed in the summer. Like, we needed these guys in the summer, and there are some that I think can wait. Like, I think we probably do need another defender, but that can wait. I think we do need another midfielder, but that can also wait, because there's going to be some incomings and outgoings. In terms of the big news that I hinted at earlier as well, Martin Zubimendi is apparently joining in the summer. The news was broken by The Athletic. His release score is about £51 million, I believe, although Arsenal are probably paying a little bit on top of that, just to keep Sociedad happy, just to keep that working relationship really happy, and make sure it works, because there's no way that Zubimendi is going to walk out on Sociedad in the middle of a season. This deal is, in my opinion, great. Like, I was so shocked that like my favourite podcasters weren't just like, this deal is so good. Like, for me, I can't see a reason why you wouldn't do this. Like, Zubimendi is the premier midfielder. Like, the only step above Zubimendi for me would be if you went out and got Kimmich. Like, if you went out and got Joshua Kimmich out of Bayern and we're like, yeah, okay, we're just going to bring in Kimmich and he's just going to be awesome in our midfield with Rice, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's like the best thing we could do. Zubimendi for me is like the next best thing. Although they're good at different things, Zubimendi is like, he's getting the thing I like about him as well is this season he's got better going forward. Like, previously I think he was really like a lone six. That's all he could do. But this season, his numbers for Sociedad, he's actually going forward a bit more, which I really like. But yeah, this signing, I love it. I can imagine him playing next to Rice. I think that's Arteta's dream, is Rice in the 8. Just because Zubimendi's a better passer from deep than Rice. And I think that's Rice's one limitation. And the reason why I think he'll never, for Arsenal anyway, play in that lone six long term. I think against lesser opposition, you can do like a Havertz in that weird 8 role, Rice in the 6, Odegaard on the right. I think you can do that pretty easily. And we've seen that against, I remember there was that game against West Ham and Sheffield United when we were like battering teams like 6-0 every week. God, I wish I could go back to that. Like, it worked then. I don't see why it can work now. But Zubimendi is, yeah, for me, it's really good. I get people are saying, like, do they need him? Do they need another midfielder when they've just signed Marino and they've got Rice and all these guys? I think that what we have to remember is Partey and Jorginho are both off this summer, apparently. They're both coming to the end of their contract. They're both on huge wages. Like, Thomas Partey is on, rumoured to be, I should say, £200,000 a week, which is one of our top earners, which is about £10 million a year. And Jorginho, I think, is on half that. He's on about 100k, apparently. Or last time I checked, I haven't checked the Capology. Capology is basically a website. I always see them come up when I use FBref, which is like a stats website I use for all my football stats. They come up on there and say, basically, this is what this player is supposed to be earning. I don't know if I think it's the most accurate out there. So that's about £50 million that Arsenal will be able to scrape off the wage bill in the summer, which is that's like a big amount of money. Like that's an amount of money that lets you do a lot of stuff. For those that don't know, obviously transfer fee is one thing. Clubs can like stump up. You can be not even that cash rich as a club and stump up a big transfer fee because you can amortize it over, well, now you have to amortize it over the length of contract. So like 5 years. Say, for example, you pay £50 million for a player. You're basically paying £10 million a year. So you can kind of mortgage off your future financially for players, which sounds a lot more daunting than it is because obviously you're guaranteed money to come in those years, TV deals, player sales, whatever. But wages are slightly more different, how it's amortized and how you have to account for it in your books. So that's slightly different, but that will be a huge help to Arsenal. Zubimendi, I think, is the perfect blend of those two players. Like, he's got Jorginho. He's not as good a passer as Jorginho because Jorginho is a freakishly good passer, and Arteta loves him, which is surprising because his physical capabilities leave a lot to be desired. And Partey is a great technical footballer, but struggles, I think, now with the physical side. I don't think his engine is quite what Arteta is looking for now. But Zubimendi, I'm really happy with this deal. I'm hoping that they're accounting for all the other stuff we need because I've got down here, we need 2 attackers. And I'm hoping that Zubimendi is Arteta's guy, right? And I was just going to come on to this, and this is actually a good segue into it. Arteta has his guys, like, that don't even play for him. Just in the transfer market, he will have guys that he's just like, yeah, we need you. And if we can't get you, then we're just going to sort of dilly-dally around and wait for you to become available. And that's kind of, I think, what he did with Zubimendi. Like in the summer, I was shocked that they went for Marino over a 6. There was 6s on the market. That was like, okay, Yusuf Fofana. Maybe we should see if we could do something there. Just as a stopgap, like just as so there's a guy just there. Obviously, I think they probably didn't want to do that because A, they like Rice playing games in the 6 occasionally. And you've already got Jorginho and Partey, who aren't going to play anywhere else apart from right back, which is obviously not ideal for Thomas Partey. But yeah, Arteta has his guys. Zubimendi is definitely one of them, but I'm hoping that they aren't just like... £51 million is a really good price for him. But I'm hoping that this isn't just like, this is a market opportunity. We had to do this. Let's just blow over one of the attackers until like the next summer or the next year, and we'll just tide through with what we've got. I'm really hoping they don't do that. And they shouldn't do, because we do need 2 attackers, as I say. And I think, I think we can get away with just bringing in the 1 this January. And I think that's what they'll do. I think it'll be a striker, as in a number 9. Now, the striker market is really, really interesting. It was quite dead to talk about it in the summer because, like, for these top elite clubs, there was not really many guys that we were looking at like, okay, this guy's going to go here and he's going to be great. Like, I think there was a lot of interesting sort of lower level moves that were really cool to talk about. But now in January, I think it's getting quite good. And I think in the summer, it will be so exciting for teams that need a striker to talk about that. But this January, the market is getting interesting. Now, Arsenal being linked to a few. I was just having a browse through my phone just before I came on and recorded, just to see sort of what the tabloids are saying. Now, it looks like the one that people are obviously talking about the most is Benjamin Šeško. I hope I'm saying that right. I believe it's Šeško. Benjamin Šeško. Yeah, Benjamin Šeško. I hope you like that pronunciation. He's the guy that Arsenal are really looking at right now. And I think they were looking in the summer. He obviously didn't want to come. I think Arteta likes him, but I don't think he likes him to the extent that he likes Zubimendi, for example, or the other guy, who I'll mention in a second. The other guy that Arteta really likes. But he's a great talent. I think it's really obvious to see why any club would like him. Chelsea have been linked today as well. He's young. He's still 21, I think. He's like 6'4", so fast, kind of like Haaland, but not really Haaland. He's tall and fast, but what sets him apart from Haaland, for example, that would make him really interesting, is his dribbling. He's a really good dribbler, which is rare for someone that build. Really interesting talent. Someone that's obviously going to want to run into space. Again, people kind of come up on this misconception that Arteta wants a 9 that can pass. I think that's a really difficult thing to ask for in this market. Like, there's no strikers that are both good to great passers and also capable of getting off 5 shots a game, having high shot volume, and having like really good shooting numbers. Like, I don't think that guy exists. Like, the strikers in the market that you're looking at that can do that, it's like Kane and maybe Lewandowski. Like, those are the 2 guys that do that. And there is nobody else. Like, unless you're willing to like take a gamble on a guy that's like really young or hasn't really done it for a prolonged period of time, like that's what you're going to get. Is a lesser player. Like, I think Arsenal should really just look at getting a guy that can be in the box, get on the end of chances, and score goals. Like, that needs to be this player's primary function. It needs to be their primary attribute. That's what I would be looking at. And I think Benjamin Šeško does that. I think he's a really talented player. There's rumours and conflicting rumours about his contract situation. He obviously signed a new deal in the summer. There's rumours that he has a release clause. There's rumours he doesn't now. So we'll see what happens with that. I like the player, but seemingly not happening. His agent... Also, I don't like his agent. I didn't like his agent in the summer when he was speaking about Arsenal and speaking about potential transfers. And I was like, your client or your player is literally playing in the Euros right now, having a stinky time, by the way, if we think back to that Portugal game. And you're talking about Arsenal. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is so strange. I really didn't like that. Which does kind of... Some people don't care about that. I have friends who are fans of other teams. They're like, I don't care about agent stuff or what the player's doing before. Like, I don't really care about that. Which is interesting. But for me, I kind of think... I don't know. I don't really like that. But we'll see. But yeah, his agent basically said that he's not going anywhere. This month, he's focused on Leipzig, which is fair enough. Arsenal can't wait around. I mean, if you like Šeško and you're like, this is the guy, I need him, then do it in the summer. Like, I mean, there's that, but also you're not going to get the guy every time. Like, and Arteta knows this because there's been examples of, in the project so far where he's been like, this is the guy, and we miss him. For example, we missed Lisandro Martinez. We got Zinchenko instead. We missed... who else? We missed out on Mount, supposedly, and then we got Havertz instead. So there's... And that's not even like a profile thing. Like, so some of those players are similar in some ways, but also really different in others. So Arteta knows that he's not always going to get the guy. So we'll just wait and see, I guess. But Šeško, it'll be interesting to see if we go back in for him in the summer. I hope that we just don't sit on our hands this window because we can't get him. But there's other options. I've got written down here Ollie Watkins, because I've seen people online just be like, he's not getting games. Watkins is 29. Any amount of money we pay is too much. Unless they were like, I can't even think of a number that Villa would deem acceptable. Like, I do think Villa kind of missed the boat on selling him, because now nobody's going to pay what they want, what they deem acceptable. Nobody's going to pay that just because of his age. Watkins is a big no, unless they were like, we'll loan him to you, and we could do a deal where we're like, if we win the league, we'll give you like 30 mil. If they're open to something like that, maybe. But obviously that's never going to happen. That's like a football manager type deal. But no, Watkins is a big no. Although I really do like the player. I love Ollie Watkins. I think he's great. I've loved him since he was at Brentford. I think he's great. But no, I don't think there's a possibility to do that deal, just because it doesn't make sense. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you think my arms are disappearing into the background, I do apologise. I keep trying to move, so it makes... Because obviously for those of you listening on Spotify or anywhere else, the sleeves on this shirt are white, and so it looks like I just have like the Adidas lines, Adidas lines running down into nothing. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Ollie Watkins. Yeah, it's a no from me on that one. I'll tell you the one I wanted, and then the one I like for this month. The one I wanted was Omar Marmoush. Those of you who know me or have spoken to me recently know I love this guy. I've written an article about him over on my Substack, which you can find in my links. And he's so good. Like, I thought he was the guy for Arsenal. Like, he's fast. He can play sort of one of those modern forwards. He can play over the left. He can play through the middle. He can play on the right. Manchester City have got a really good player there, and people were saying, well, Haaland's there, he will have the capacity to play instead of, and with Haaland, when I hear him speak, his attitude seems to be in the right place. He is, and his numbers obviously are incredible. Shot monster. He's obviously fast as well. I really like this player, and I'm gutted we missed him, because for me, I would have been all over this, unless his preference was, you never know with these things, his preference might have just been strictly City. This might have been a deal that was set out months ago that Arsenal just missed the jump on. But kind of disappointed our scouts didn't pick up on this guy, because, yeah, he's just that good. And I'm really sad that City have got him, because it's annoying, because I was looking forward to City being not so good for a while, but they're making good signings, and that's not good. Although it's good for them, so I'm happy for them. But the one I want, or the one I would do this window, is Osimhen. And I think Victor Osimhen is an interesting player. He's obviously in Turkey at the moment. For those of you who don't know, he was set to go in the summer from Napoli. There was a bit of will they, won't they with Chelsea. That didn't quite happen. Osimhen's price has dropped. This is not just due to his on-the-field stuff, although it's kind of due to that, I guess. He's basically struggled with injuries. He averages, I think, about 22 90s a season. I believe that's the number I heard the other day, which obviously isn't ideal, but he is still a phenomenal striker. Like, his numbers are still great. Obviously, if you look at his numbers on a stat sheet, the things that really pop, his underlying numbers, is his shooting. Like, he is a great goal scorer, which is what you want. He's not a incredible passer, which I think people won't like. But for me, as I said, I don't want a guy that can play in terms of the signing, this has to be a guy that just scores goals. And if he's just a 9 and just plays in the middle and he's just a 9, then he's just a 9. If it's a case like Omar Marmoush, where he can play, across the front line, then that's a bonus. That's great. But this guy just has to be a goal scorer. And Osimhen is that. Like, he's so good at scoring goals, and he's bullying the Turkish league at the moment. I think he's got like 11 goals in 14 appearances or something. It's crazy. Obviously, he's the best player in the league. In terms of, maybe not in terms of output, I don't know if there's anyone better, sorry, to any Turkish league fans. But for me, he's a premier talent. And there's rumours that this might be difficult. Although there was a rumour of a break clause for about £50 million. Obviously, his price has fluctuated so much recently. Napoli obviously got desperate in terms of selling, because they wanted to get Lukaku in. Conte obviously fell out of Osimhen. I think they really dropped the ball. We'll speak about that maybe in next week's podcast. I wanted to speak about some transfer stuff, but I think Napoli really did drop the ball with how they dealt with their Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen deals, because, man, there was so much money to be made there, and they just, they made some back obviously on Kvaratskhelia, but not as much as they would have liked. But yeah, Osimhen, I think I would just do it this window, because we can't keep waiting around, and someone else is just going to do this. So we might as well just go get him. But in terms of the future, and the guy that I was speaking about was someone who I think Arsenal need. It's a profile that Arsenal desperately need, and it's Nico Williams. I think Arteta loves this guy. Like, the press, like, that's what gives me the impression through the press, and the fact that we haven't committed to signing a winger. Like, there's guys out there that we could have signed. Obviously, what we want is someone that can either play on the left when Martinelli's having a tough time, although he's never as bad as people make out, and also rotate with Saka. That's really ideally what we want. Kind of like a Reece Nelson or Raheem Sterling, but better. Also, the positional thing I think is kind of secondary. The main thing is we need someone that can dribble. And that's someone that nobody in the attack right now can do or is allowed to do for many reasons. I think Arteta doesn't like it because dribbling is a really risky way of moving the ball. Like passing usually is the safest way to do it because the ball is quicker than you. And when you're dribbling, past someone, the balls are very close to them. Obviously, you can easily be tackled. But we need a guy that can dribble because teams are now kind of comfy. They know how Arsenal play. They know that we, want to make chances around the D, balls into the box, or some interplay. They know that that's how we make our chances, as well as set pieces, of course. But we need a guy that can break the mold. And I think Nico Williams is that. He's a great dribbler, but some of our fans seem to think he's like this premier player that's going to come in and we're just going to plug him in and he's just going to fix all our problems. I don't think it's going to work like that because, again, he's got like 1 goal and 3 assists this season for Bilbao. He's a great player, worth the money. I pay £50 million if that's the rumoured, or €50 million, I think is the rumoured buyout. I'd pay that, but because I love the player, but he's not going to fix the attack. Like, there's very few players in world football that you can plug into this Arsenal team and they just fix you. I think one of them is Mbappe. Obviously, Vinicius Jr., I think probably fixes the attack if you plug him in. And those are probably the only two. Because even if you get like a Haaland or a Kane, let's say, for example, and you put them in that Arsenal attack, I still think like there's no one to really cause a bit of chaos. And I think that's really what you need. The alternative, obviously, people still quite like Sane. Leroy Sane. He's obviously out of contract at Bayern in the summer, but he's old. He's like 29, 30. I don't like this deal. Every January where I see like Arsenal, Bayern, I'm like, no. Because it's either going to be Gnabry or Sane, and they're both old, and it just doesn't work. Like, we've seen this before. People love this idea of like Arteta just assembling ex-City players. Excuse me. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I would stay away from either of those two players. And in terms of guys like, obviously the one we really missed the boat on, who I would have loved, and I was like, in the summer when they were having financial problems, I was like, go get him, was Rafinha from Barcelona. Obviously last night, incredible performance from him against Benfica in that crazy game. But this season, he's just crazy. He's an insanely talented player. People seem to think he couldn't play on the left. I don't know why that was. We saw him do it in France. He's just a premier talent, and we really missed the boat on that. And I know he wanted to go to Barcelona really badly, but getting him would have been great. But we have to live with that mistake. But yeah, that's really it for this week. In terms of looking at the projects and where we go forward, to sum it up, I think in a project, when you come towards the end or the stagnation period, there's two problems. It's either the personnel, as in the players you've got aren't good enough, and you don't have the means to improve upon that in the immediate term. Two, from an ideological standpoint, where your ideology as a coach or a club has taken you this far, and you can't go any further until you change. I think for Arsenal, it's a bit of the blend of the two, which is actually a good thing because we have the means to change the personnel, and Arteta is smart enough to hopefully change his ideology. So I think we can do that. Just a quick one. I think in the summer we will be angling for a few more players because, as I mentioned before, there are players in the squad that Arteta either doesn't like or just seemingly isn't getting any minutes. Kirill, Zinchenko. So I think in the summer it might be, again, 4 or 5 guys. 5 guys? 4 or 5 players coming in. And then hopefully next season we can be improved. I do think this season is a bit of a write-off. I think unless something crazy happens in the Champions League, which is possible, the season is kind of dead and buried, which is unfortunate because I have this nifty Arsenal Champions League kit on and we probably aren't going to win it based on the way we're playing at the moment. But you never know. Anyway, that's all from me this week. Thank you very much for joining me, whether you've been on YouTube or you're seeing clips on my TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts. Thank you very much for being here. And I will be back next week. next Wednesday, hopefully, should be with another episode. If you've got any ideas or any feedback or any comments, please comment on, as I said, my YouTube or my TikTok or anything. I'll be happy to listen. But that's all from me today. Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye.